to discuss maintaining student connectedness in a COVID-19 world. We are now, oh my goodness, 9 months into school closures. And so I don't think any of us really expected it to last this long in the beginning. So let's talk about, before we move into talking about student connectedness in a COVID world, what I would like to do is just kind of check in with you and see how you're feeling. I like to start a lot of presentations and meetings with the feelings wheel. One reason I like to use it is because I think we often get caught up in the usuals, right? How are you feeling? How are you doing? Tired, sad, happy, good, right? And I think one of the things that really doesn't just help us, but helps our students as well, is to be able to identify our feelings. You know, there's a common saying, you got to name it to tame it, right? So you have to be able to name the feeling you're having in order to be able to tame it. So if you guys could just take maybe 30 to 45 seconds, and if you could just pick 2 feelings that you're feeling right now and put it in the chat. 2 feelings. Nope, there we go. Hopeful, yet anxious. Okay, there's a lot of anxiety right now. Absolutely 100%. Cheerful, but tired. Okay, it's the end of a Monday. Absolutely. Tired and hopeful. Oh, I'm loving this. I got some hopeful, some cheer. This is awesome. Anxious and thankful. Wonderful. Again, a lot of anxiety right now. Very, very glad to see the thankful as well. Tired and anxious. Okay, few more days till break. Tired and anxious. Few more days till break. Let's see. And then we have overwhelmed and optimistic. Okay. And you know what? That they seem like they don't match, but they do. They do. Overwhelmed but optimistic, probably because you're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Let's see. Thankful and pensive. Okay. Tired and anxious. Yeah. Content and aware. Oh, I like that. Sad, tired, peaceful, content. Wonderful. Tired and hopeful. There's some more hope. I love it. Optimistic and anxious. Okay, that's understandable. You're worried about what's coming, but you're optimistic. It's going to have a good result. I like that. Let's see. Tired and optimistic, tired and content, relaxed and hopeful, frustrated and skeptical. Oh boy. Okay. Hopefully you'll feel a little bit less frustrated at the end of the afternoon. Faithful and thankful, wonderful, hopeful, and overwhelmed. Well, thank you so much for sharing. That's a lot of feelings in there. And that is good. Let's see, click. All right, okay. So now I wanna kind of just talk about, you know, we're talking about maintaining connection in a COVID world. Well, what is connection, right? What is human connection? Brene Brown, who I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, she says, human connection, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from that relationship. So that's human connection. There simply is, and then Dr. Joanne Cacciatore, that's a wonderful chicken dish, by the way. Dr. Joanne Cacciatore, I love this one. There simply is no pill that can replace human connection. There is no pharmacy that can fill the need for compassionate interaction with others. There is no panacea. The answer to human suffering is both within us and between us. Feels so hopeful. I love that quote, so hopeful. And I'd also like to say that our brains are actually hardwired for connection. Humans are hardwired for connection. We need it in order to thrive. So what is school connectedness? It's the belief by students that adults and peers in the school care about their learning as well as about them individually. And the more connected to school students feel, the better the overall outcomes. And they're also more likely to engage in healthy behaviors and succeed academically when they feel connected. I don't know, you hear a lot of information about school climate and positive school climates. A big piece of that is the connection that students feel to the school, to the staff, and to each other. Now, relationships. I don't know how many of you guys have heard relationships when they talk about the new 3 R's, the 3 R's. A lot of people talk about the 3 R's with education. But one of the big ones is relationships. Having just one caring adult, one caring, trusted adult improves connectedness to school and overall school climate, can reduce the effect of trauma in the classroom. If you have students that you know are impacted by trauma, which right now, being in a pandemic is definitely can create trauma, and being in a crisis can create trauma, just having one caring, trusted adult for them can reduce those effects. And relationships, one caring, trusted adult is also a protective factor against suicide. So social isolation impact. So we can talk a little bit about loneliness and social isolation. So social isolation is the absence of social contact, state of being cut off from normal social networks. Now, I will tell you that since our closures and everything has begun, I've been trying to really focus on physical distance, not social distance. We do not want our students socially distant. We want them physically distant. I know we use the term socially distant because that's the term that's out there, but if you look at, there's certain, I'm trying to think of where it was, but there's one place where I've noticed they always say physically distanced. They do not say socially distant. And if you look at some papers and some information out there, and they always will refer to as physically distant, not socially distant. We do not want to cut our students off socially. So what is loneliness? It's a negative feeling, a discrepancy between desired and actual social contact. So discrepancy between desired and actual social contact. So you can see how social isolation can lead to loneliness, right? Because we're not getting this desired social contact. So while we do not have any previous data about how widespread isolation such as this we're currently experiencing may impact our children in the future, we do have data on how social isolation in general can impact a few areas. For example, there was a study by Brigham Young University. It showed that chronic social isolation increases the risk of mortality by 29%. They did a meta-analytic study and they found that chronic social isolation increases the risk of mortality by 29%. Just knowing you have someone you can count on if needed is enough to dampen some stress responses. So social isolation can increase the risk of a variety of health problems, less social contact, less mitigation of stress. So not only can social isolation increase the risk of a variety of health problems, it decreases social contact, and social contact and supportive social relationships can mitigate stress. And what are we all feeling right now? A lot of stress, which is why the social isolation right now has a potential to be so much more damaging. And it can also cause both short and long-term mental health problems. So social support is widely studied as a factor that minimizes the effects of stress. Not only does social support help people feel less stressed, but it can actually improve your health and decrease your mortality risk. Also, it can dampen your stress responses, which include insomnia, emotional exhaustion, and substance abuse. Social isolation will affect children differently. Some children are more vulnerable. Only children with anxiety-prone parents, and socially isolated prior to COVID-19 lockdowns. Virtual connections and social support will mitigate isolation. Again, we're not saying kids have to get next to each other, right? We're not saying we're not going to continue physical distancing. We're just saying we want to make sure that we're finding ways to maintain and improve social contact during this time. So here we go. In teaching, you can't do the Bloom stuff until you take care of the Maslow stuff. Okay? You have to Maslow before you bloom. So I'm not sure how many of you guys are aware of Maslow. I know you're all aware of Bloom and Bloom's taxonomy. So this is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs for right now, with battery life and Wi-Fi right now the most important. This would be your 2020 pyramid or your 2020 hierarchy of needs. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into it more in the next slide. So basically on the left, you have Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So basically, Maslow theorized that there is kind of a hierarchy of our needs, and that in order to meet our needs, we have to meet the needs of the level before that. And when you look at it, it makes sense, right? Physiologically, before we're even talking about love and belonging, we have to be able to breathe, have food, water, homeostasis, excretion, right? Our physiological basic needs are at the very bottom. Next is our need for safety, the security of body, of employment, of resources, of morality, of the family, and of health and of property. So right now, just leaving the house can make us feel unsafe, right? So that's where a lot of us are at right now, is that level of safety. Next, we want to look at, after that, we get into loving and belonging. Now, I was talking about social connection, right? And how important that is. That's getting into your love and belonging. And so not only do we have limited or less social contact right now because of the situation we're in, we're also in a place where if we're not feeling safe, it's even harder for us to make those contacts and to maintain those relationships. And then esteem, self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, respect by others, and then self-actualization. That's all of our goals. Morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, lack of prejudice, acceptance of facts. Okay, so that is the high one. Now, if you look at on the right side, I love this, is the COVID hierarchy of needs, right? And there they have health and wellness at the very bottom, and then they have safety and security. Now, if it kind of feels like we've been on a little bit of a roller coaster the last 9 months, right? And we're starting to feel like, okay, the numbers are going down. The numbers are going down. Yeah. Things are opening up a little bit, right? We might feel a little more safe and secure. And then all of a sudden the numbers start spiking again and everything's closing again. And so we may be getting knocked back down to safety and security when we're starting to feel more safe and secure. And so we want to look at here is, I like how it's like a mountain, right? You get up so far, and then if you can't get past the safety and security, you can't get up to social belonging and connectedness. And even if you're working on your social belonging and connectedness, it's a lot more work to get confidence and contribution when we have less social connection right now. So this is another great one for COVID. Maslow's hierarchy of needs applied to teaching during the COVID-19 crisis, because we are teaching our kids in the middle of all this, right? So at the very bottom, do our students feel safe? That is the first question, okay? Students have access to basic human necessities, food, safe living environment, understanding availability of community resources is important here. Next, do they know they are loved and missed? We know social isolation is real. More than ever, students need to feel emotionally connected to their teachers, classmates, and families. Students must feel appreciated and loved. Then we look at, do they have coping skills to deal with crisis and emotions? Feeling lonely, scared, and depressed is a reality for many school-age children, and they have yet to develop a skill set for coping with emotions caused by a crisis of this magnitude. Just reflect on that for a moment. You know, we talk a lot, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about social emotional learning and how important it is for teaching coping skills. And it's important for us to teach coping skills so our students have them to deal with ordinary life stressors. Well, those are coping skills, what they might normally have, what we might be working on, right? If we're in class and everything like that right now. But even if they have coping skills, are their coping skills able to deal with and help them cope healthfully with a crisis of this magnitude? So there's ordinary coping skills that are great, but are their coping skills enough for them to deal with and cope with and maintain through a crisis of this level? And that's a different question. That's one of the reasons why, although we're virtual, right, and we're doing distance learning, it is still so important to have those social emotional learning, that social emotional learning curriculum in there. We still need to be teaching our kids coping skills, right? We still need to be giving them the opportunities for social connection while they're physically distant, because all of these things are going to help mitigate the effects of the situation we're in right now. Do they have access to instructional materials, right? Do they have good Wi-Fi, right? So do they have access to Wi-Fi, computers, tablets, books, other learning materials and resources? And the last one is, do they have the skills for online and remote learning? Teachers can now focus on remote learning. So look at all that other stuff that has to happen before they're ready for your lesson. So here's another example of putting them two next to each other in terms of what it looks like in a remote setting, or what it looks like, what Maslow's hierarchy of needs always look like in school, right? Physiological, how do you address their needs for physiological needs? Water breaks, meditation, temperature, water, snacks, right? Making sure they're getting their snack break, making sure they have water with them. Safety, affirmations, worry drop box, compliments, class blog. Love and belonging, service projects, celebrations, discussions. We can still do virtual celebrations. Esteem, expert day, career day, student showcases. You can have kids do like a show and tell, you know, have them show stuff or have them talk about things in their home that they're proud of. And reflections, critical thinking, journaling, community outreach. We also have basic needs are met, again, at the very bottom. Emotional and physical safety is next. Forming relationships. And I mean, I'm going to say not just forming relationships, but maintaining relationships, right? One of the most important things for students with their social emotional learning skills is relationships, right? But it's not just having them, but it's also maintaining them. And, you know, you have some, you know, I know some of you, I'm sure, have a student who gets in a lot of arguments and fights with friends, right? So it's not just making those and forming those relationships, it's learning how to maintain them. Esteem, positive classroom culture, positive feedback, time for reflection, encouragement to take risks. Then we have self-actualization. Student is available to learn. You notice that? Student is available to learn is at the very top of all this, right? And you're like, okay, I am here to teach, and you're telling me all this other stuff has to happen before I can teach, right? And it's just, it's hard, but that's the reality, right? And especially right now while we're in a crisis. So what I'm going to do is show you guys a video that was done, I think, back in March or April. It's lessons learned, social distancing may impact student development. So I'm going to show this to you guys. It's about a 9-minute video. Let's see, here we go.
So much was missing from our students' educational experience.
Okay, hold on. See on pause. There we go.
From March to May. We've talked a lot about the academic gaps created from remote learning, but just think about what the isolation from friends, some family, and teachers does to a young person still developing into who they are. That worries top educators in East Texas.
Part of this separation has been impactful to the mental health and social emotional learning students.
I'm certainly worried about the learning gaps that may occur, but more importantly, I'm more worried about the social and cognitive gaps that may occur. I mean, there's something to going to school every day.
I mean, the way that school is actually structured, it's really structured more about the social emotional learning than it is about the academic. I mean, what we do and how we come together is vital to how we keep kids healthy.
We need each other. I mean, that's the way we're built.
The coronavirus pandemic compromised social and emotional learning without a doubt for students. Schools certainly tried getting creative with virtual classes and even parades to reach the socially distant, but was it enough? The Morning Loop's Dana Huey finds out in tonight's Lessons Learned.
We all know that the information that we learn in the classroom, that's just part of education. Think back to what you learned in school through relationships, about life, yourself, working with others, and making tough decisions. Experts in the field tell me that social and emotional learning isn't a perk, but an essential piece to help students academically and later in life. And it should be a priority in the school year that will be unlike any other.
A lot of our students have made comments that had they known they would not have come back after spring break, They would have walked a little slower to get out the door.
Little did they know those school doors would close. White House ISD counselors Teresa Gray and Candy Temez worried what that would mean for students socially and emotionally.
I think our biggest concern in elementary was just the loss of those relationships. Our kids learn so much through social skills and through, that supportive network of teachers and peers and counselors and everyone at the school, just, as a family. And to have that loss just really concerned us.
My biggest concern was not being able to have the students at our hands readily. A lot of times, teachers and educators, counselors are the #1 reporters for abuse.
The counselors found ways to connect with students, logging onto Zoom, sending an email, making a phone call, or in some cases, a house call.
We did do a few home visits with ones that we were concerned about, that we couldn't get in contact with. We went with one of our administrators and counselor went to their houses to make sure that they were okay and had the things they needed.
Did the audio stop for everybody? Yeah. Nettie, the audio has disappeared.
It's okay.
Decisions.
We've been working with districts and schools to implement it. We really see as sort of a systemic
Is that better?
approach to how the school is actually doing.
Yeah, but it looks like their faces are freezing.
In a lot of ways, everything we do is social and emotional in nature. Like the process of engaging with a curriculum or learning about a subject in history brings up things for students naturally that causes them to connect that with my own experiences, with how I've connected with other people. And their learning is also really strongly tied to my relationships that I have with the other students in my class, with the teachers that I have in my class.
The effectiveness of social and emotional learning is compelling when you look at the research from Castle and its collaborators. A huge meta-analysis of thousands of students across pre-K to 12th grade in 2011 and 2017 found that when students were engaged in high-quality opportunities for social and emotional learning, that their grades in reading and math increased 11 percentage points.
There's a lot of science and research right now out there about how students actually learn and develop. And it shows that relationships, that the type of learning environments that they're in, that the attention to their social and emotional needs really is foundational for them to be able to engage really deeply in academic content.
But teachers say connecting during the pandemic presented new challenges for social and emotional learning.
I spent a lot of time trying to hunt down people that I wasn't hearing from.
Shelley Beaumont teaches Algebra 2 in White House.
I'm around high school kids all day long, and high school is the time where you grow up and you start to pull away from mom and dad and start to interact with the rest of the world. And school is sort of a little bit of a safe, structured place where you can have those interactions under supervision. You can make connections with adults and people your own age, and you learn things like being a leader or, just making good decisions and making good choices and things like that. I just think that's a really key part of growing up and a key part of any education.
And the threat of COVID-19 on everyone's health also brought to light some real concerns when it comes to equality and education.
There's lots of racial injustices and social economic inequities that are being exacerbated by the pandemic and this nationwide movement right now that I think are very important to pay attention to. At the same time, I think it's also important to recognize something that I don't think as many people are talking about, which is that there are some students actually who said, you know, school didn't always feel like a welcoming place or a motivating place for me. And this new way of learning, which means that I'm more self-directed, which means that like I have more interaction either with my family or partners or kind of these outside of school experiences, may also be helping them to thrive in sort of new ways.
Helping children and adults thrive in this new world is something Castle and more than 40 partners are trying to do with their new roadmap for reopening schools. First, they recommend taking time to cultivate and deepen relationships, build partnerships, and plan for social and emotional learning.
Learning how to cope with negative feelings, deal with stress at their house, how they feel about themselves, how they feel about others, those relationships. I think it's all intertwined. I don't think you can separate the learning from the social emotional part of education.
Also, design opportunities where adults can connect, heal, and build their capacity to support students.
We also not only want to be there for the parents and students, but for the teachers. They do have a lot of burden and, you know, maybe scared to come back to campus as well.
Create safe, supportive, and equitable learning environments.
I think for me, just giving our kids more time just to talk, just to express themselves, talk through what they've been through, and just giving them like a safe space to talk with their peers too, because a lot of them have been through the same thing and may not know it until they have those conversations.
And Castle's last major guidance, use the data as an opportunity to share power, deepen relationships, and continue to improve support for students, families, and staff.
I think when we talk about the impact of on social emotional learning, I think it's really important to think about the varied experiences that are coming out of this pandemic. And I think as schools are kind of preparing to transition in whatever form back to this new school year, it's going to be really important to pay attention to these different types of social emotional needs so that they're setting up supports in ways that, one, address these complex needs that many students face and help them kind of come back to schools in ways that allow them to bring their whole selves, right, and acknowledge that they feel stress and talk about their emotions and process this experience that they felt.
Leaders in social and emotional learning say don't underestimate what students and parents are saying to you, even if it's virtually, because the classroom of the future may not look like the classroom of today. We've got you covered, East Texas. Dana Huey, CBS 19.
We certainly don't have all the answers, but we're working to get them for you. You can email Dana any concerns or questions you may have about the state of learning during this pandemic. The address is on your screen. It's education@cbs19.tv.
All right. So one thing I just kind of want to review some of those recommendations that they made at the end. Take time to cultivate relationships, build partnerships, plan for social and emotional learning. Talk about how to cope with feelings. There's a lot of great curriculum out there. You can also ask your school counselors as well. Opportunities for adults to connect, teachers, parents, their partners. Create safe, supportive, equitable environments, and don't underestimate what students and parents are saying to you, even virtually. So right now, I'd like us to have a small group discussion. So I am going to send you guys into breakout groups. Barbara, I'm not seeing the breakout groups option here.
I just made you host. That should give you the capability. Did that work?
Let me see. There we go. I see it. Thank you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you, we're going to put you guys into breakout groups. What we're going to do is just like you're going to answer, what have you done this school year to build student connectedness? What has been successful? And what are some obstacles and concerns moving forward? So what I'm going to do is I need to make sure I put this Padlet into the chat for you. Okay. Paste. Okay. Oh, the questions are at the very top on the Padlet. If you can see when you go to the Padlet, the questions are at the top of each. I'm not sure if you guys have used Padlets before. They're great. So the question's at the top, and all you're going to do is just click on it and put your answer. So what have you done this school year to build student connectedness? Let's see. Lunch bunches for students to hang out, right? Let's say that's what you did. And then just like that, upload it. Oh. Okay. And just like that, you're done. That's kind of how you add to a Padlet. And then what you can do is then you're going to put down what has been successful and what are some concerns and obstacles moving forward. So you're going to have 10 minutes for this, 7 minutes. We're going to do 7 minutes. And then we're going to share back. So I'm just going to do it automatically, and you guys will be in your breakout rooms. Just remember which room you went into. Oops, hold on. Let me see. Breakout rooms. Hold on 1 second. Create. There you go.
Hi.
Hey.
Can you do me a favor and pause the recording?
Oh.
It won't let me.
Okay, hold on. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right. If we can have someone from the first group just share something they've done this school year and to build connectedness, and has it been successful? You can unmute group 1.
Sorry, hi.
Hi.
All right, we discussed playing songs in the beginning of meetings, or if you have just office hours, I guess, that inviting them to come not only for help, but if they just want to chat with each other, or playing games even. And I have kinder, so maybe even doing share days, or if they have talents or things that they like to do for fun, having them show that at the end of meetings, like giving them just time to show off maybe some art or like music that they like to play, whatever it is.
Sounds great. Are the kids enjoying it? Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Group 2. Group 2, anyone from group? Oh, there we go. Group 2?
Yeah, I'll share. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, sharing. We really just discussed some of the issues we're having, or just suggestions, because we had a lot of instructional coaches and mentors in my group, and I liked a lot of the suggestions they had, whether it was to just encourage students to use a profile picture. Um, I know in the district, we can't necessarily force students to, turn on their cameras, but at least that way, if we can just see an image, or, maybe like an avatar or something, just to kind of have a sense of, okay, like, just to make students feel more comfortable, as well as just, making sure that we have time to like just discuss how everyone's feeling, and address those needs. And something I've been doing that's been working for me is I like to play music in the morning, so I play different types of music, and sometimes students are like, oh miss, can you play this song? And so then we'll talk about it, and then other students will chime in, and it's a really nice thing. So I kind of let them talk when they first come in, which has kind of been good and a nice way to get to know them a little better.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Group 3? Group 3?
Hi. So something that we talked about was things that are going well in terms of like building relationships and classroom community. And we also talked about music, but something that someone else brought up in my group that I really liked, he said that before he introduces a large project, he makes sure that the class period beforehand, there is a lot of time for talking and just building relationships with each other about non-school related things, so that they have that connection before they dive into a big project that's going to take a lot of time and energy from them. So I thought that was really cool.
Sounds great. Love it. Group 4.
We talked about some of the best practices as well. One of the teachers in the group shared about just using the chat. We didn't have a aesthetically pleasing circle that was presented to us not too long ago, but as an option, we could use the chat and simply ask, how are you feeling today? And have them enter some of their responses in the chat. Having said that, some of the challenges came up as well. We had an RSP teacher who had some challenges converting real-time games and engaging activities to virtual activities, and then engagement as a whole, like having the camera on, showing the face. That's always been a challenge, and seems like a third of the students are engaged while 2/3 are still kind of struggling with that in that area.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And group 5.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, in our group, we talked about doing a lot of talking before launching into a lesson, trying to probe the kids with questions using the chat. We talked about clubs, how a couple of us have started some clubs to do on maybe some off times, like lunchtime or after school time, that the kids can come to if they're interested in gaming or drawing. They can come together in these small groups and talk with each other and create some bonds over a common thing that they like to do.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So let me get back over here. Okay. So we're going to get back into it a little bit. I want to talk right now about parents as partners. Research shows that kids whose parents are involved do better academically and have better educational outcomes. And right now it's more important than ever, because right now they're managing the classroom for our students that are distance learning, right? The home is the classroom. We need them on board with us, reinforcing schedules and routines, helping their students access technology, and helping with the follow through of assignments. So don't forget, parents are our partners all the time, and now it's even more important. So if you're struggling with getting a student, online, talk to the parent, ask them what's going on, see what you could do to help. Are there any, barriers like issues with devices or Wi-Fi, or is it they just need help, with getting a schedule for their students? Schedules are really good. Maybe they just need help creating a schedule for their student, and that's going to help. It could be for some students is having them, I've heard one strategy too that can help for kiddos, is to have the parent get them up, get ready for school, put their backpack on, walk outside, walk back in the door, and sit down for school. Because then they feel like they actually got up and went to school, right? I mean, as close as you can get, right? But for some kids, they need that, right? Because school's in the home, right? And that helps in their mind a little bit with the division that, okay, it's now, okay, I got my backpack on, now I'm coming back in, now it's school time, okay? Also, some of you guys talked about similar things, right? Like decorating their space. Some of you guys had talked about using a picture on their face for their sign-in and stuff. Maybe they can decorate their workspace at home, put out their favorite items. Some of you guys talked about maybe each person gets to share their favorite item that they keep in their space, and that gets them to get to know each other. Also, then get to know you and what your space looks like, right? Show and tell time. I know that may not sound like something for high school if we're talking about high schoolers, but there's things that they're going to want to talk about as well. Virtual office hours are wonderful because, like you guys said earlier, sometimes kids just want to come in and talk, not even come in for help with work. Sometimes they just want to come in and talk or chat or just make a connection. Assignments related to getting to know each other. You can give them assignments to help them to get to know each other. Let's see. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. High schoolers love show and tell. Don't let them fool you. Thank you. Also, what is one thing you want me to know about you? That's a good one too. You can just ask the students. It's a really good, actually, beginning of the year activity, but it's just saying, what is one thing you want me to know about you? You can use Google Forms for get to know information. Google Forms are great because once someone clicks and fills it out, all the information goes to the same place. So you can create some get to know you forms. Check-ins, many tools we use in person, asking questions, listening empathetically, reaching out to let others know we care, can be modified to our virtual settings. Check-ins are one way to accomplish this. If you notice that someone seems to be a little down, or someone, didn't log on the whole time, or usually their screen's on and this time it's not, maybe you can do a check-in with them individually and reach out to the parent. Hey, can you get them to log on at this time so we can chat? Check-in surveys, can be done at the beginning of the day, end of the day, weekly. Again, this is a great thing to use for Google Forms. Could be a Google check-in. You can just ask them, maybe you want to know what they took away from class that week. What is one thing you learned this week? How are you feeling about what you learned this week? How do you feeling about school, about class? How are you feeling about this project we've just assigned? It's a great way to find out how they're feeling. Back to school survey, likes, dislikes, get to know you. 5-minute chats. We're going to talk about on the next slide. All right, so here we have a bunch of check-ins and stuff. So what I'm going to do is show you these. So these are some examples of COVID check-ins, and I'll make sure you guys have the slides so you guys can, just have the links for all of them. So for educators, COVID check-in. So if you want to see what it looks like. How are you feeling today? Could be, how are you feeling this week? What questions do you have about school or life in general? What concerns do you have that might limit your ability to engage in learning, right? Is it someone that has to take care of somebody, needing to share access with siblings in the house? Do you have any ideas for easy, low effort, but fun ways to connect with each other in class? Maybe the kids have some great ideas. Maybe it's something they did in another class or something they just really like to do. How can I better support you today? That's an example of one. Here's another back to school survey, but you can always, just adjust it and modify it. Let's see. Here's the paper survey. And remember, any of these you can create on your own in a Google form that you send out, so all of the answers go into a nice spreadsheet for you. Favorite hobbies, if you have free time, what do you prefer? Have you ever played an instrument? Have you volunteered in your community? Which of the following activities do you like most? Which of the following traits best describes you? That's a great question. What do you like best about school? Which of the following do you think is important for success? Most important quality? Yes, the slides will be available afterwards. I'll send them to Barbara and she'll be able to share them with you guys so you'll have all the links. And it's so funny. That's always the first question I ask. Let's see. Let me go back here. 5-minute chats. These are great too. So you can just do these chats before school starts, or you can schedule 5-minute chats with your students, right? I'm not sure how you're all doing things in your district. We do asynchronous and synchronous time. One thing you might do if you want to is, you may not be, if you're not, if there's a little break in there, maybe during your asynchronous time, you're checking in with some kids, right? Or doing some 5-minute chats. You can do them in the beginning. And this is great because it gives you ideas of how to run a little 5-minute chat, right? And it just gives you a whole outline of it, right? So you can just say, I know things have been unusual lately. Have you been keeping busy? What is new for you since last school year? You can even just say now, if you want to do these now, what's new for you since the beginning of the school year, right? You can do these. If you haven't done these yet, that's fine. You can do them as like a mid-year check-in, or maybe you start off in January, right? We're about to have a break, about to have a new year. Maybe you start off the new 2021 with some 5-minute chats with your students. Okay, and I love this. It's got a great outline for it. And then we also have building developmental relationships. Okay, here's another one that kind of gives you ideas of how to run a little check-in or run a chat. Okay, start with expressing care, send a text, email, video that says that they matter personally, ask how they're spending their time at home during the crisis, encourage or require them to use time at home to focus on learning or doing something they have been struggling with in your class or program. Ask them what they are or could be doing to help their parents, siblings, or others through this difficult time. Ask them how they're feeling about the world. Ask them what rules or norms your class. I know that's more of a beginning of the school year thing, but that's always a good idea. Helps build community in your classroom as well to, have them give input into the norms and expectations in the class. Connect them with places and people that'll broaden their world. Right now they can do some of this virtually. There's a lot of museums, a lot of virtual tours, a lot of great stuff out there that has been made accessible virtually as well. You can also give that as an assignment too. If you want to broaden their world, you may have them as a lesson, make them, go on a tour of a museum that has a virtual tour right now and write up a little something about it. Okay, group work assignments. One of the reasons why group work assignments are great is because it gets students to get to know each other, right? We do group work assignments in person for instruction. We can do them virtually as well. It might be a little bit harder in getting connected, right? Making sure if someone's trying to reach out to someone and they're not responding, it might be a little bit harder to get them together, but you can assign group work assignments. You can also do work in small groups, right? You can break up into small groups and you can work with groups individually, and that'll help you work with them more individually. First 5 minutes, talk about non-school related stuff as everyone is logging in and getting settled. You may have your kids that log in early and you may have your kids that log in late, right? So if you start your first 5 minutes, you can start it a little bit early and end it a little bit late so that everyone's in. Talk about non-school related stuff. Considering allow students to chat with each other as they enter digital classroom, right? Think about it. When they're entering your physical classroom, until that bell rings, they're usually chatting with each other, right? Well, they don't have that opportunity right now. So you could create that opportunity for them with first 5 minutes, or maybe you go every other day. Maybe one day it's them chatting with each other and one day it's you guiding the first 5 minutes and chatting with them. Then there's morning meetings. It allows you to see them as humans and create a bond in typical classroom. Life routines are an important way to build connection, whether that means hosting a check-in circle, connecting with social emotional learning activities, or participating in group mindfulness practice. If a student's unable to attend, you might invite them to write a message to classmates in advance that you can share. And here's a template for some morning meetings. And again, you'll have access to all this. There we go. I do, we do, you do, right? You can do that with mindfulness activities. You can do that with check-ins. You can do that with all kinds of stuff. And you can give different themes to each day of the week. And then also, you know, we did the the feelings check-in, and you could do a feelings wheel wellness check-in with students, just asking them how they're doing. You can even, if you want to make it real simple, you can even do it based on zones or colors and say, okay, are you feeling good? All my kids that are good, green. All my kids that are not great, they can be orange, and all the kids that are doing fabulous can be blue, right? And then you just have everyone put their thumbs up if they're green, put their thumbs up if they're blue, put their thumbs up if they're orange, and then try to do your best to take note of who put their thumbs up when they're orange, right? So there's a lot of different things you can do to kind of check in with them. You can ask them to put it in the chat, or you can do, like you said, the check-ins, the little Google Sheets and the check-ins where you can have them fill them out, you know, maybe once a week as well. You can record announcements. You can do virtual field trips. You know, we can't get out right now, but just we were talking about those museums, aquariums, all those great things. You guys can do virtual field trips to those places. Also video newsletters, you know, where you can give little video updates to everybody. You could do announcements. When you do your announcements, they can include student birthday shout outs. They can include group job shout outs, important resource information or updates on classroom or school updated classroom or school policies. It's a good way for students to see you. Newsletters, you can get very creative with your communications. Consider recording and uploading a video to include in the email. It could just be a, hey, news from room 25, and just a quick little update on what you guys have been doing or what's coming up. Gratitude notes are wonderful. Collect and share virtual notes of gratitude and appreciation with your students. Over the course of a week, ask students to submit notes of appreciation about their peers. Compile these notes in a slide deck or in your Google Classroom to share with students, caregivers, and staff. And it helps build trust, compassion, and empathy. You can also do it as a shout out as well and just say, you know, shout outs every week. And you can have them do this almost the exact same thing and just call it shout outs if you like. You can also do writing, social emotional learning prompts for writing. It can help them process their complex mix of emotions that are going on right now. It gives them an option to share with the class or only share with the teacher, and allows them to share out their feelings, but also gives you a place to check on them and follow up if you think it's needed, or refer them to the counselor if needed. When we're talking about fostering friendships between students and connections, you know, you can do small group lunch buddies, you know, virtual field trips. Like we said earlier, you could create clubs. Someone had that wonderful idea earlier talking about creating clubs as well. So right now, I'm gonna put you guys in another breakout room, and there are a bunch of articles here. So you're going to do one of the purple ones. So 6 through 11, you can read at your as much as you want wherever. Just I thought there were good articles to have as resources. But each group, if you're group 1, you're going to read the first article. If you're group 2, you're going to read the second one. If you're group 3, you'll read the third one, 4, 4, and 5, 5. I did include this one that is ways to support kids with ADHD during remote learning because one, you may have students with ADHD, but also because they're good strategies in general for students that might have executive functioning issues. And just, you know, when we're in a crisis, a lot of times executive functioning is decreased. And so these can be good strategies for all your students, which is why I wanted to include that. And so I'm going to put you guys in your breakout rooms, but before that, I am going to share the link for the articles. There's that. Okay. So take that, and then I'm going to put you guys in your breakout rooms. And you're going to have about 15 minutes to read and share. Okay. 15 minutes to read and share. So it's 5:03. So what I'm going to do is bring you guys back at 5:15. Welcome back, everybody. Group 1, anything that you'd like to share, anything that stood out to you in your article? Strategies for trauma-informed distance learning.
We just talked about how we're like, we need these methods in our own lives because we're tapped out. And we're feeling like all the song and dance of like trying to be peppy and like add new ideas to our classrooms. The kids are just like cooked, and so are we.
And that is understandable. That is absolutely understandable. And that's one thing that, you know, I didn't mention it earlier, but, you know, you guys have to remember to give yourselves grace and give each other grace and give your kids grace. I don't know, and I'm not sure which article it was, but one of them I know, and it may be that one, where they talk about, you know, shorten assignments. Like, it's okay to give them shorter assignments sometimes, you know, like they're overwhelmed, you're overwhelmed. This is not the usual situation by any means, and it's okay. You know, there's going to be times where that is perfect. Absolutely. Group 2. Who had how to Maslow before Bloom all day long.
Yeah, we talked about sort of similar to what you were just saying. Like there are a lot of wonderful suggestions there for like, you know, mindfulness exercises and how, you know, greeting your students. And I think a lot of the stuff is things that teachers either know intuitively or they've been reminded of recently, but it's still hard. It's easy to forget once you get into the thick of like academic instruction. And I think all those old expectations of like, I've got to cover this much material, the kids have to learn this stuff, we have an essay due, that starts to take over. And I think we just have to remind ourselves that like, we don't have to try and maintain the same expectations and pace of the traditional classroom. And we can, you know, kind of honor like what the situation is and what it calls for.
Absolutely. I mean, you have, and it's really easy to get overwhelmed when you're thinking about expectations when you have a lot less instructional time, right? Or at least a lot less time with them, you know, individually as well. In addition to the fact that everyone is dealing with, you know, the current situation. And the other thing is you don't know how much it's affecting them either. And you don't know how much exposure to media they have. And are they hearing every day the updates of the tolls of people sick? Are they hearing every day the updates of how little capacity there is in ICUs, right? Yes, I see a hand.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna kind of ask the group. So one of the things our article said was like, don't talk about triggering topics, limit exposure to current events, that type of thing. And I find that the reverse has been helpful with high school students because I teach high school, so obviously it's different for kinder, but like if they need space to unpack all of the fear-mongering messages that they're hearing in the periphery. So I'm just wondering what that's like at the elementary level or for y'all middle schoolers or anything like that.
Good question.
I teach kinder and we don't necessarily talk about everything that's happening, but we definitely spend time addressing what COVID was, what are things we can do about it, and just feelings we have towards it. And just we talk about it, so it's not just some forbidden topic. But at the same time, I don't go into too much detail, but I do address like the feelings, the protocols, things like that, and make sure that they're comfortable with it. So.
Okay, group 3. Group 3. Group 3, you still with us?
Well, we didn't have any discussion, but I think we individually each read the article and just probably, took notes on just some ideas for dealing with students with ADHD, but that we could use these for all students though. So one of the things that I came away with was allow them to fidget and to stand during the lessons and really kind of have that body movement that they really do crave. So those are some things, and make sure that your schedules are very clear and that you're always posting those schedules, making sure that everybody understands that. Setting timers on, cell phones, things like this, because they do have difficulty sometimes with their time limits. So anyway, that's what I came away with, so.
Well, and actually that was a common theme, and a couple of them was the allowing brain breaks or fidget breaks. That was a common theme in a lot of the articles too. All right, group number 4. Group number 4.
So ours was about, celebrating successes and letting students know that you care about them. And some of, like teachers who teach subjects like math, some of them found it challenging to carve out time to do activities like that. And I kind of shared that at my school, we send postcards to the students. Just, all the teachers have a stack of postcards and you can send them at any time for any little reason. But the students like that, and then you're not necessarily taking away time from class. And I share that we also do a monthly lunch with the students in our grade level, and each teacher in the grade will choose a couple of students who show the values or whatever it is we're trying to celebrate that month. And the kids enjoy, having a lunchtime with the teacher, and we get to celebrate them, but we're not really taking away from, the academic time.
Do the kids get really excited about their lunchtime?
They do. They do. They like it a lot.
Awesome. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, you guys will still have that access if you want to read any of the other articles. And I'm going to add another one that I thought was fantastic. It's ensuring whole child well-being as a foundation for learning, and their keys are relationships, routines, and resilience in the time of COVID. So those routines are two things that stick out in a lot of articles are routines and schedules, keeping them, making sure you have good routines and schedules, and forming those relationships. And then I think it's here. Okay, thank you. So we can't leave without talking just a little bit about self-care. And it all starts with the adults, right? You're the classroom teacher, the parents at home, their social emotional well-being. It all starts with our adults, right? And we can't pour from an empty cup. So I have a little video, it's about 2 minutes, on self-care for educators. When it starts.
What are some other ways that you practice?
I don't. Oh boy, that's definitely a skill I need to get better at.
Self-care is hard, especially in this profession.
However, my focus has been to get outside more, do more engagement with our environment.
Cranking up the tunes in the kitchen, cooking something delicious for my family.
There is more to life than just work, even if you really enjoy your career a lot like we do.
I don't grade papers at home. I don't check my email very much at home. And I'm a better teacher when I have established healthy boundaries with work and leave work at work.
So one of the ways that I practice self-care is being able to say no. Sometimes you have to be able to take a step back and refresh before going on to that next project.
1-minute meditations. I just close my eyes, take a deep breath, and try not to think too much about what happens. And when I open my eyes, I feel much better.
Try to turn your brain off and let it be quiet sometimes.
Disconnecting from technology and distractions and spending time with the people that I love the most.
Before you assist others with the oxygen mask, assist yourself first. I like to exercise and be with my family, but yeah, assist yourself before assisting others.
I think it's really important to give myself the time to be creative. Even actually really digging in and researching is creative for me.
I play piano in the evenings. I read a book. I try to take time that is both being still and also being active.
Spending time in prayer, practicing yoga, or even spending time outdoors, like going boonie stomping around the jungles of Guam.
Fresh air and movement are key to restoring my sanity and perspective.
I get up before anybody in my family when it's still dark outside, and I go to the gym on some mornings, or I go just sit and have some quiet time to myself.
Or I am going for a walk, or I'm reading a book, or I'm taking a nap on the weekend.
I practice self-care by traveling. Sometimes it's good to get out of our bubble.
My best mode of self-care is to learn from my students. I've learned patience. I've learned empathy. I've learned the latest dance move.
To reach out to other teachers, share experiences, and have somebody to bounce ideas off of. It rejuvenates you and helps you reignite that passion for teaching.
Gonna skip this one, and I want to show you a virtual wellness center. If you need a break, I don't know if you have something similar in all of your districts, but you are more than welcome to check this one out when you need a little break, a little brain break, or whatever you need. So if you go to tusd.org under parents, you're going to scroll down to virtual wellness center. And we're going to scroll all the way down and click on the virtual wellness center. Let's see. Okay, and so if you look down here, you're going to see a whole bunch of different wellness activities you can do for your self-care. You can use it to take a break. Let's see. We've got apps. There's a lot of great apps out there right now. Headspace is free for LA County through, through the end of 2020. So for another couple weeks, which is a great app. Calm's a great app. Insight Timer, Smiling Mind, Shine. Drawing and coloring mandalas is a really good relaxation. Obviously, running, walking, right? Yoga, those are all great activities. And then we go down here. We've got creativity, music. If you like music, there's a bunch of music stuff there. There's breathing and guided meditations here. How to meditate, breath meditation, 5-minute stress relief, breathing meditation, 10-minute meditation for anxiety, 10-minute meditation for stress. I love the picture of a little girl meditating. Guided meditations for teens. You've got unique mindfulness worksheets, breath work, all kinds of different stuff, ocean waves, relaxation. Then we also have journaling is great. Some students really love to journal. That's great. Adults love to journal. Journaling is great. There's some health and nutrition stuff because that is so important during times of stress, is to eat well and exercise. And then we've got puzzles and games. And then my actual favorite is the relaxing pets. So this one is great. It's just literally jellyfish moving to music. It's great. Dolphins, if you need a 5-10 minute break. You've got farm animals. You've got zoo animals. And of course, we have to have household pets. And of course, one of my faves, the Panda Cam. So if you just need to take a break, you can always come here. If you like to do mandalas, you can get mandalas. If you like music, I'm sure you have your own musical playlist, but there's a lot of great stuff here. If you just need a break, you can kind of go through it. If you're looking for ideas for self-care and ways to de-stress, you can always come here as well. And then that's my information. Please let me know if you have any questions or anything. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Okay, well, with that, we'd just like to say thank you to Antoinette for your presentation on mindful.
I'm sorry, someone asked me if I could copy and paste that link. So let me do it real quick for you guys.
Sure.
Let's go. I got to go back and go through it the way I do it when it's not from.
Well, Antoinette's grabbing that link for you guys. Again, like to say thank you for your presentation. We truly learned a lot about maintaining student connectedness in a COVID world. And thank you teachers for joining us this afternoon. We know it's been a long day, and you continued your day with us to learn a little bit more about how you can support your students with connectedness in your classroom. Before you go, we would like you to take a moment to complete our session survey today. Your feedback is always very important to us, and again, it helps us to determine what additional professional development sessions that we can offer you and support you in your.
I just added it to the chat.
And then I'm going to add in the link to the survey. All righty. Thank you everyone for coming and joining us tonight. Again, please make sure you take the survey before you leave, and the link to the wellness, the virtual wellness center is right there as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to enter those in the chat or take yourself off of the microphone. And
Barbara, will someone be able to email them the slides?
Yes. We'll be able to email those out with the recordings as well. Thank you.